Happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of Drank and Champagne. I am Drank, and of course, I am joined by Champagne. Mr. Andrew Champagne. Andrew, how are you doing, my friend?
It's been a long year this week. I am in the process of moving. This is actually, in all likelihood, going to be the last time that I will be doing this show from this particular set. I am moving this coming weekend to a condo, thank you, that my fiance and I like very much. Going to be a lot of packing, going to be a lot of chaos, and then a lot of unpacking once we get to the new place. But hopefully, by the end of it, all be worth it. We very much like this place, so something to look forward to at the end. But no, actually, very much like this neighborhood, and thankfully, it's a fairly close driving distance for if I ever want to swing on by again. We're recording this on Wednesday night. It's been a long week for a variety of reasons, I think for both of us. And when you had mentioned looking at Oaklawn's Friday card that's now on Saturday, remember they canceled, they moved some stuff back. So Friday's card is now on Saturday. I started looking, and the first three races of this pick four sequence were like therapy for me. Then we got to race number 10, and I don't know if what I'm doing is going to be a first on this channel, but I believe it's a first in the history of this show. And Josh, I believe you will have several buttons at the ready for when we start talking about that race, which is a claimer for non-winners of 2 Life that my old colleague and friend Kurt Hoover from TVG and FanDuel Racing describes as evil. This is a hard pick four sequence. And Josh, I think it's going to pay.
Yeah, I had a hard time with some of these races because I landed on some short prices, but I also landed on horses that are going to be prices. So it's tough, right? You gotta kind of figure out how you're going to structure it, right? Because you can't just use, right, if you like the 2-1 favorite and you like the 7-2 favorite in the next race, you like the 5-2, but you also like all these mid prices in those races too. Like you can't go too wide and just cast too wide of a net. It can ruin your value. So I think there was one horse in particular that oh, maybe not. We'll get through it. It was a tough. The first couple of races were tough. The last race, I didn't. I maybe that's where I kind of made my stand a little bit because I only used a couple horses in there where you're going to use a lot more. But yeah, it's interesting. I think we have two different approaches, but most importantly, Andrew, we have a consensus ticket.
Hit the applause button on that one right there.
So, and I mean, it's a very skinny ticket, but there's a consensus there. So, and hey, we've seen it before, Andrew, where all of a sudden you get a couple of scratches, and the skinny ticket doesn't look too bad. So, we're both in the 30s, right? I think you have a $33 ticket.
Yep.
I have a $36 ticket. So I think fairly reasonable. But Andrew, before we get to talking about this pick four, man, it just has to happen every year where we get one of these weeks, huh? Where just weather just completely destroys any kind of semblance of a normal schedule for racing. It's funny. There's always a lot of talk here. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. There's always a lot of talk about how winter is different, and climate change and things like that, and how it doesn't snow as much as it used to, right? It doesn't stick around as long as it used to, but I'll tell you what, man, these cold fronts are crazy. Like they still keep on happening, whether or not we're getting snow or not. We hit -7, I want to say, yesterday. So it was getting pretty cold. And then of course our friend Barry Spears, we were talking about the weather, and he's posting the 72 and sunny in Tampa. So shout out to the sniper over there. But uh, it's been cold here. It snowed a couple of days, but it kind of stopped. Has weather been crazy up there in NorCal, or are you guys hanging in there?
Let me be abundantly clear. There are several things that I miss about upstate New York, which is where I grew up. I miss the sane parts of my family. I miss the ability to readily and easily find very good pizza. I do not miss the winter weather at
Hmm.
all whatsoever. I may have told this story on this show once before, but I'm going to tell it again. When I flew home for the holidays back in December, I went to upstate New York to see my family, and I sent my fiance a picture of the weather -4 at 6, 7 p.m. Her response was something akin to, "That's not a real number." Because she's one of those California people that when it dips down around 50 says, "I'm freezing, I'm freezing." And look, this is not a dig at my fiance. It's pretty much everybody out here in California. Um, Going back east recalibrated me a little bit because I was starting to get a little bit soft too. But it was -4 that night, -4, -7, minus something. When I got back to San Francisco the next day, it was 52 degrees. People were walking off of the plane, bundled up, freezing, and I'm going, this feels like the tropics. This is wonderful.
Hmm.
So it hasn't gotten too wild and wacky here. Couple of days of a lot of rain, which we desperately need out here in California. Feels like it's dry for 360 days out of the year, and then the other 5 days you got to worry about mudslides, right?
Hmm.
Um, but having said that, yeah, thankfully we're doing okay out here. I do have a space heater that I've used at night because it has dipped down into the 30s at some points at night. But I thankfully reasonably sane here.
Yeah, we go to Vegas in the winter usually. That's when we like to go, um, because we're not like really pool people. I mean, I like the pool, but when we go, we mostly go to eat and gamble and drink. We're not there to really enjoy the resort, or like, we'll usually get a massage or something, right? When I go with my wife, but um, yeah, oftentimes people are like, oh well, we're going to the desert, it's going to be fine. And no, it drops into the 30s. Like it gets a little chilly. But it's funny because as I've lost weight, I think I'm still. It's been a struggle lately. I think with the winter and not being able to get out and walk and play as much volleyball and stuff as I was doing before. I've been a little stagnant lately. But this winter, I talked to my doctor. I'm like, man, I'm like cold all the time now. And he goes, "It's what happens when you shed all that weight. Like you don't got that layer anymore. So
Yep.
I'm a normal human being. Like I have to wear long sleeve shirts now, and and I walk around in a sweater. Now it doesn't help that my wife, she loves the cold. So our thermostat is set to 62 for heat.
Why?
Um, she loves it, man.
I'm a 65 guy. 65
Well,
I'm okay with.
granted, now we're also in a two floor condo, so the thermostat's in the first floor. It's usually between 5 and 10 degrees warmer in the room I'm in, which is
Right.
just above downstairs. So,
Hot air rises.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's usually not too bad in this room, but like, um, when I'm up later than her, and like, I don't know, recording a podcast, or I have a day off and she doesn't, and vice versa, and like I sleep on the couch, just because she's a real light sleeper and I just don't want to wake her up. uh I'm like double blanketed up down there because it's like freezing, and it's because
Yeah.
we put it at 60 overnight, right? Because we're asleep. You don't need it to be that warm. But um yeah, in the summer, the bills get really high because we usually keep it around 65 with the air conditioning. But luckily we have a tiny place, so it's not that bad.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it takes someone with experience in cold weather situations to understand the magnitude of the situation that you are in, shout out to our friend Chase Sessoms. Chase, Chase is taking not just pages, but chapters out of the Andrew Champagne Lord Miles playbook as he does his never-ending victory lap with Magnitude. By the way, Josh, did I tell you that I had Lord Miles at 59-1 in the 2023 Wood Memorial? Lord Miles Day is coming soon. I believe it is April 8th. Everyone mark your calendars accordingly and, send me stuff.
And that's gonna do it for us here on Drinking Champagne. No, sorry. Actually, I never asked Andrew. Has Alicia been to Saratoga?
Yes, I brought her once. I got her on video drinking water from the Big Red Spring.
Why would you do that to her? Now that so she never wants to go back after that.
Well, she never wants to go back for other reasons because that day, it was one of those days where, as my father puts it, I'm like the Pope as far as receiving visitors because for some strange reason, people recognize me and even scarier, like me. Yeah, horrifying stuff. But no, we went once, had a great time. Wound up going back. This was back when JetBlue had that wonderful route between San Francisco and Hartford that they unfortunately discontinued because we don't get to have nice things.
Well, on that note, let's take a look at this late pick 4 here. Oaklawn Park. We're going to start with a $50,000 maiden claimer. I thought this was a fun race. We're going to be going 1 mile and 1/16, 2 turns here on the main and only track at Oaklawn Park. Mind you, this is Saturday's late pick 4 that was slated for Friday. And obviously, if you're listening to this Thursday morning, well, obviously make sure you hit like, subscribe, download, hit all the buttons, right, depending on where you're watching and listening. But we'll be live on Thursday night. We'll be covering the Rebel late pick 5. That'll be run on Sunday. That was originally slated for Saturday. So they kind of just pushed everything back one day, probably just so like not a bunch of like they would still be able to keep all the races filled because you're only moving one day. I know I saw some chatter like why didn't they just move Friday to Monday? But I guess
Can
they
I
thought
just
this was
point
better.
something out?
Mhm.
This might win an award for sheer ridiculousness. There was on Twitter, Matt Dinnerman put out the notice saying, "Hey, we're moving everything back a week. Friday's card runs on Saturday. Saturday's card runs on Sunday." I'm not going to name the person that tweeted this, but they responded to Matt saying, "Are you sure?"
Hmm.
Yes, I think the track announcer at Oaklawn Park is sure about the schedule being run at Oaklawn Park. People, what the hell are we doing? I figured you'd get a kick
No
out
one
of that
knows.
story.
Nobody knows what we're doing. Let's be honest.
Everybody
Um,
get off our Oaklawn.
all right, so race 7 here, mile and 16th, main track, maiden claimer, 50,000 for maidens, fillies 3 years old, and yeah, this was an interesting race. Your morning line favorite's going to be 8 Carrie's Kiss at 5-2, 3-1 on lottery ticket. You get 9-2 on Cat Pays the Toll, 5-1 on My Shot, 6-1 on St. Albans Raid, double digits on everybody else. And Andrew, um, this is kind of the prototypical. I'm looking at this field, and I'm not seeing a whole lot, but I see a Brad Cox first time starter. And you know, he hasn't had the best of meets here. I mean, because granted, I think most trainers would love to be winning 16% at any meet, but Brad Cox, we're used to seeing him in the low to mid 20s, right?
At least.
And I mean, if you look at fairgrounds, I think he's in the 30s there. So maybe he's just not sending the best stock over here to Oaklawn, but honestly, this field just doesn't look really good. Doesn't look very strong. So I definitely think that this first time starter, being entered in for maiden claiming is something that he doesn't do often, but when he does, he still wins at a 20% clip. And he's also pretty good at debuting these horses going 2 turns, which is not something that a lot of trainers are good at. So maybe some questions on the pedigree. It's not necessarily win first pedigree. Maximum Security is only throwing 4% first time starter winners, and Tis Now is only 8%. So on the bottom side. So maybe we are asking a little much here, but I'm using this 3. The other horse I had as an A is the outside horse, the 10 horse. Cat Pays the Toll. I'm kind of just putting a line through that last start. Was on a muddy track, going a mile, first time in the new barn, and I'm just gonna go ahead and yeah, the horse was kind of floated wide and just didn't really make up a lot of ground. Honestly, the Churchill races look good. You got a horse that has set off the pace. You got a little baby Z pattern in the race 2 back. You just missed 3 back at this level. And granted, I just think that 50,000 maiden claimer at Churchill is probably much better than a 50,000 maiden claimer is at Oaklawn. So I think is dropping in class here. But I'm looking for horses that are going to be probably coming from slightly off the pace. If you look at the Brisnet stats, the last week, 10 races that they've had at 8.5 furlongs. At first call, the winner is on average 3 lengths behind the leader. We're not seeing necessarily, a lot of wire to wire type things. I mean, it does say a 30% wire job, but if the average is 3 lengths off of first call, that means you got a lot of horses closing. And so I think the track is probably playing either 2 closers or at least more fair than maybe a lot of other dirt tracks are. So I'm looking for, like I said, the more versatile, more off the pace types here. So that's why I like the 10. And that's also why I used the 1 horse Viveka as a B. I think this is one that is stretching out. I think is not going to be near the front of the pace. I think is one that's going to be coming late, and it's coming from Turfway Park. And our friend Chase Sessoms, the Wolf of Oaklawn,
Oh,
that
he of
man loves.
magnitude fame. Did you know he had
Yeah,
him at 43 to
well,
1?
that man loves betting the horse off, coming from synthetic onto dirt. So you got the synthetic to dirt here for
Do you
Steve
have the little
Asmussen.
pig boy sound effect that he
I
uses?
do not have the little
You
pig boy sound
should. You
effect.
should find it.
That's Chase's game. I can't be stealing his.
Of course
I
you
can't be
can.
stealing
He's
his sound.
stealing mine. We can steal his. I mean, we're all sort of family.
But first time Lasix here. I think this is one that's going to be coming from off the pace, and I think is one that's going to run a little bit better here on dirt versus what you saw on the synthetic last time out. So I'm going to be using the 1, the 3, and the 10 in leg 1. Andrew, where did you land?
Well, we agree on 2 out of 3, and I'm using your bomb, Viveka, for a reason that is purely one of my favorite angles, and that is the Steve Asmussen 2-back work angle. On February 1st, Viveka went 5 furlongs in 1 minute and 3 fifths, second fastest of 47 at the distance. Last time out, maintenance move. When Steve Asmussen does this, it's usually a sign of significant confidence. I like first time Lasix. I like the class drop. I don't think we're getting 15 to 1, but I'll be very happy if we do because I do think Vivek has a chance at a lifetime best effort. I'm going to be using number 10, Cat Pays the Toll as well. Just draw a line through the last race. I don't think she particularly cared for the mud. Her prior effort in the mud, first time out at Ellis Park, wasn't very good either. She wants it fast. She knows that she can go 2 turns on a fast dirt track. You mentioned the race 2 back at Churchill. Her race 3 back at Keeneland was pretty darn good too. I think she could potentially be good enough to overcome that far outside draw. I'm also going to use number 4, Zen Dreams, who gets first time Lasix. Last time out had a very wide trip, and you mentioned the Z pattern. This is a Z pattern race. Moved very, very early. Went from 5 lengths back at the first point of call to 2 lengths back at the second call. Weird stuff happened that day, and it was a pretty classy race. The top 2 finishers are both next out winners, and I think Zen Dreams has the potential to step forward considerably. Those are the 3 that I'm using. You notice I am not using lottery ticket. Josh, let's say, and I'm picking a random name here. Let's say McLean Robertson, trainer of Zen Dreams, trains lottery ticket. What price do we get?
Uh, 20 to 1.
I can't bet this horse at 3 to 1 or anything remotely close to it. The workouts aren't anything special. And when Gary and Mary West drop in a horse for a tag first time out, especially a filly, I think there's a lot of ifs here. Lottery tickets got to beat me in order to prove it. And I'm also not a fan of number 8, Carrie's Kiss. Last time out, she ran very well. She was second beat and a half length, but I thought she had a picture perfect trip over a muddy track that nobody else in that field was particularly taking to. She finished very, very slowly. I think there's a little bit more speed in here. She is a bet against for me at that likely price. I think she is much more likely to replicate her 2 or 3 back efforts than her last out effort. And I don't think the last out effort is good enough to beat these. I'm 1, 4, and 10 in here, trying to beat the 2 favorites. And if we do that, Josh, we'll be off to a very nice start payoff wise in this pick 4.
Yep, which leads us into leg 2 here. 6 furlongs. We got a $10,000 allowance on the main track, 4-year-olds and up. And yeah, this was a morning line favorite. Here is the 3 Russian to win at 5-2, 7-2 on Raymond, 4-1 on Eternally Grateful, 9-2 on Top Gun Tommy, 8-1 El Diablo Rojo, double digits on everybody else. Andrew, I went 3 wide here, and I don't think I was particularly creative in this spot. I saw you were a little bit more narrow, so I'll let you go first. Where did you land?
Yeah, I'm too deep in here. Russian to win makes a lot of sense. The one word of caution that I have with Russian to win is yes, he's won 3 in a row. But if you look back at his form, just focus on the number of times he's run very, very well while fresh. This is a horse that likes time between races. He gets a month. That's not nothing. But it's also, I don't think, not the desired time between races where you're going to get the best version of him. Now, 90% of what we saw last time out probably at least puts him right there. He doesn't need to improve off of that last out performance in order to win this race. He might need to repeat it, which is why, while I like him here, I can't single him. I'm going to be using number 5 Top Gun Tommy as well. Last time out, he ran a good second, beaten 3 lengths against what was probably a better field. He goes second off the layoff for David Jacobson. Jacobson wheels him right back on fairly short rest. That is usually a sign of significant strength for him. My hesitation with him, though, is if Top Gun Tommy is as well meant as I think he could be, why is David Jacobson also running number 4 Pressure? It's entirely possible there's a good reason for that, but I'm looking at this and I'm expecting either Pressure or Top Gun Tommy to scratch. If they don't, watch the post parade very carefully, especially if you're out of the late pick 4 and playing a pick 3 of shame. Copyright JD Fox, all rights reserved on that one. But yeah, for me, I'm 3 and 5 in here. I'm not going too far off my rocker. I think Russian to win is a reasonably logical favorite. Just I don't know if I would expect something like what we saw last time out because we know he runs well fresh and he's not totally fresh here.
Yeah, of the forwardly placed horses, I think he's the one who I want. Obviously, won pretty impressively last time out. Um, but honestly, I looked at the kind of the pace complexion of this race, and I saw a couple horses that are going to want to come from off of it. But honestly, I think really the 6 and the 8, the 6 Eternally Grateful and the 8 Raymond, both have, I think, um, the type of pace splits I'm looking for when I'm trying to play a closer in a sprint. I'm going full Wolf of Oaklawn here, betting the closers in the sprint. Um, the number 6 Eternally Grateful ran fine last time in an allowance, a $20,000 allowance. Obviously went wire to wire going a mile, but 2 back and 1. But I think at the 6 furlong race, I mean, that last race, the number came up pretty good. And I just think that, I think maybe it was just maybe a little too far back. So, and also it was a bit of a tougher class, right? You're looking at a $20,000 allowance as opposed to 10,000 here. So, a slight drop in class, staying here at the 6 furlongs, and I just think that this has got the run style that I'm kind of looking for here. Wheeling back here in about 3 weeks or a little less than 3 weeks. So, Scott Becker, it looks like he's running this one a couple times, and he's run well the last three since the layoff. So, um, yeah, I like Eternally Grateful here, and I'm also going to use the 8 Raymond. I mean, this is a horse that's coming in good form, right? This is a horse that's coming off back-to-back wins. A 10,000 claimer goes to allowance company, comes in and wins. And what I like to see is closed into what was a pretty slow second fraction, right? They went 22-3 in the first, but then they slowed that down to 46-3, right? So you got a 24 second fraction there, and this is a horse that at second call was 5.5 lengths back and was able to make that up and win by a length and 3/4. That's a serious kick for a claim or an allowance horse at this level. So I really like the 8 Raymond. I think um, with the way the track's been playing since I've been watching the last couple weeks, I do think it is playing fair and maybe, like I said, even a little bit to closers. I'm not saying just throw speed out completely, but I definitely think the 6 and 8 are both in here with really big shots. So I'm using both of them as well as the 3 Russian to Win, which is the horse that you had talked about previously.
You mentioned Raymond. Raymond is the last horse I threw out of the entire ticket. There's no denying this horse is in very good form. I'm not sold on the quality of the starter allowance field that he beat last time out. I don't think that field is any great shakes. I think this one might be better. But Raymond does have a place in my heart because of the dam. The dam Teen Pauline broke a Saratoga track record first time out back in 2012. If you're watching this on YouTube, you may have seen me look down. I just needed to confirm that on my phone. She was a very serious racehorse for sure. So Raymond, easy horse to root for, fun running style. Wouldn't be surprised if Raymond ran well, but given the construction of my ticket, which we've teased a couple of times now, I needed to be a little bit more narrow in this particular race. And it helps that I think both Russian to Win and Top Gun Tommy are both legitimate.
Let's move on to race 9 here. A mile allowance, 130,000. Um, Non-winners of a race at a mile or over since December 21st, 2024. Um, and Andrew, normally, I like to alternate, go back and forth, but you got a single in this race. So I went 4 wide. You took a single. I'm gonna let you talk about your single.
I've been fortunate to make a lot of friends in this game, and I'm going to steal a saying by one of them. To quote Todd Schrupp, I don't just like a horse in this race. I love a horse. And that's number 4, Gun Party. Gun Party ran well the first 2 starts at Fairgrounds early last year, then ran a big race on May 4th at Churchill Downs going a mile. That third place horse was Timeout. Timeout was a legitimate prospect for part of last year, and Gun Party ran very well in order to win that race going the mile in 135-3. It is very safe to assume, Josh, that something went wrong last time out on June 30th because we haven't seen Gun Party since. With that in mind, I look at the trainer, Steve Asmussen, and I look for the work tab. And sure enough, what do I see? A 2-back bullet. 5 furlongs in 59-4, followed by a maintenance move on February 17th. Josh, I think Gun Party is loaded. And if Gun Party is the horse that we saw 2 starts ago on May the 4th at Churchill Downs, I think he's a very serious runner. These are connections that paid a lot, and I mean a lot of money for this horse back at auction. $1.7 million, folks. And I think Gun Party is every bit the horse to beat in this spot. 7-2 on the morning line hits me as a significant overlay. I think he should be favored. Your morning line favorite is number 9, Lat Long, who is 2-1. I think that's coming up. I respect lat long, and in fact, I used lat long in an episode of Get Off Our Oaklawn a couple of weeks ago when we were looking at a pick four sequence. But the more I look, the more I think lat long just wants to run second. He's a plotter. I don't know how much pace there is in this particular race. I think Gun Party has more in the way of tactical speed, and I think Gun Party has a much higher ceiling. If Gun Party does not go off favored, I think that's a mistake. He's a single for me, and he's my best bet of the program on Saturday at Oaklawn Park.
I have two horses. I mean, I like your four, Gun Party. And I'm also, you see, if you're looking on YouTube, there's a bee next to it, right? These are kind of symbolic bees. Honestly, this ticket, I'll probably just play Caveman. And, maybe I'll toss in a press ticket or two. But, the way I kind of play it, right, this horse is going to make most of my tickets still. Um, that race two back looks great. And honestly, coming from off the pace at Churchill isn't always the easiest thing, especially in a maiden race. So to see this horse coming onto a track that I do think is playing a little bit to closers or to off the pace horses, I mean, I have to use this horse. I also have to use the 5 horse Indy Magic, who is kind of a little similar to me to the 4 Gun Party in that the race two back I think looks pretty good speed figure wise. Now obviously it doesn't look as good form wise as Gun Parties, and that was an optional claimer. And then I think something just went wrong in August. And I know this isn't Steve Asmussen doing it, but Mark Cassie's basically got the same work move here, where he's got that bullet, and granted, it's a pretty decent 5 furlong work where they went 101 and 2, right? So, um, I think this horse is ready to fire fresh as well. And I think if the track is playing for off the pace, these are two that you're gonna definitely want to use. Um, but my top pick is the 9 lat long. Um, you know, ran third in the Lecomte last year, and I think went to the bluegrass and I mean was 1,000,000 to 1 and in over its head, and then kind of did the thing that these horses on the Derby Trail do, end up as overlays the rest of the year, and um, kind of was running at short odds and running fine, but just not winning, right? And so this is a horse that hasn't won since it's broke its maiden as a 2-year old in December of 23, but that was also here at Oaklawn Park. So it does have 2 runs here at Oaklawn. They're both fine. This horse was a short price on both of them, but the last race, the third place winner came back to win one. So I just think that this is a horse that has maybe been a little snake bitten. So you know, I 2 to 1's a little short. And I think I have a bit of a tough time like suggesting you win bet this one because obviously I'm using 3 other horses, and but I definitely do think that this is a horse that could win in this race. And this is probably my top pick in here. Um, but another horse I do have marked as an A is the 8 Capers Hooley.
Josh likes an E8. Let me show you my big shocked face.
There is not that much speed in this race, and I just I as much as I've been poo pooing speed all stream or all episode here. I mean, this is a sprinter. This is a horse with sprinter speed. I mean, doesn't this horse just get out and get loose there on the front end? Now, granted, maybe this is one that just comes back, right? Comes super tired, finishes fifth or sixth, gets passed by a bunch of tired horses. But I kind of have a feeling I'm going to get a price on this one, and I think if I can get maybe get a little a little lone speed action here, I think this is one that could maybe come in here and surprise a little bit. So I mean, does need to take a step forward. I think he's going to get a bit of help from the pace complexion in this race, but it is going to be I think a little bit against the track profile from what I've seen, but. I'm gonna use the 8 and 9 as A's. I'm gonna use the 4 and 5 as B's.
So before we move on, I just want to point one thing out. Far be it for me to question the merits of Kenny McPeak, who is a fantastic trainer coming off of an outstanding year. The more I look at Long, the more I want to see him back on the turf. He has one turf race on his sheet back on October 28th of his 2-year-old year. He did not have a good trip that day, big time Z pattern. And I look at that pedigree and I see a street cry mare. Put this horse on turf one time. It's just a real shame that Oaklawn Park is off the turf what seems like every day, Josh.
All right. In race 10, mile and 16th on the main track. This is probably the easiest race for you, Andrew. So I'll go first before you hop in. Um, I landed with two horses. Um, I kind of went back and forth, but I think my top pick is going to be the 6, Gluckstad. And, this is a Steve Asmussen trained horse. Unfortunately, we do not have the Steve Asmussen special here where we got the fast works. We also have a horse that's been training at Louisiana Downs, right? So not one that's even been here at Oaklawn. Um, so I do think I think a little bit that this does maybe speak to the quality of the field in this race, and that this is the horse that I'm kind of landing on as my top pick. Um, Honestly, I just think that race 2 back was pretty good. And this is a horse I think that's going to be coming late. And I know Mist is the favorite last time, but he's got a barn change coming off a couple weeks rest, and yeah, I'm interested to see how this one does with, like I said, the way the track has been playing the last couple of weeks. And then I'm also going to use the 10 Fear of Union. Now the 10 Fear of Union here is was in a $55,000 claimer N2L, was a voided claim that last time. So I kind of just think that maybe something went wrong there. Um, so now we're going to be coming back here with coming back, hopefully whatever issue they had has been able to get resolved. And if you look at, the races, 2, 3 back, I think those are all really good. Like I said, I love seeing a horse that closed or came off the pace at Churchill Downs. And this is a horse that, was able to win a maiden claimer 50,000 at Churchill Downs coming from off the pace. Came here the claiming company at $55,000, maybe just a little bit in over its head. So I like seeing that this horse is, coming back down into, I think, a more reasonable, class level. So yeah, I like the number 10, Fear of Union, and I like the number 6, Gluckstad. And we lost Andrew. Where did you go, Andrew? See if we get him. Uh, I don't want to ruin his big surprise. If he's able to rejoin. Hmm. Well, unfortunately, it looks like I don't know. It looks like Andrew's going to try and restart his internet, but I'm going to give away his big secret here. Mr. Andrew Champagne, he used the all button. He used the all button. That's the first time. I think it's a first time for drinking champagne. Might be a first time for on the wrong lead, honestly. I'm not a proponent of the all button. Actually, I think Andrew's used the all button before. Hopefully, there are people out there who maybe have paid attention. Um, but um, I think he's done this before. I don't want to let him get away with this too easy. But His ticket is 1-4-10 with 3-5 with 4 with all. And I am 1-3-10 with 3-6-8 with 4-5-8-9 with 6-10. He's got a $33 ticket. I have a $36 ticket. And yeah, I think that the sequence is gonna pay pretty decent. I'm hoping I get, maybe get a price in here somewhere. I'm honestly like, I always have a tough time with some of these sequences where you get a lot of like mid price horses you like. Um, I know there's a couple of short prices I faded, but even so, like, I might have faded the 5-2, but I like the 7-2 or 9-2 in that race, so it's yeah, it's interesting. I always think that those types always pay a little bit more than you think, but yeah, unfortunately, I haven't seen Andrew reconnect yet, so I think we're just gonna go ahead and end it here. Check us out on onthewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drink. Andrew is at Andrew Champagne. Obviously, you can check his stuff out at winnersandwhiners.com. And hopefully his internet comes back at some point, because he's got some Hong Kong picks he's got to give out. So, I don't know. Get better soon, Andrew. Andrew's internet. Have a good one, guys.